So, I wanted to talk about Shan'Ann Watts again and the children that were murdered. So, the husband confessed to murdering all of them. And people want to know how. There's something called crime porn. I noticed on YouTube there's quite a few people who have channels that discuss crime, and I wonder why. Why would your mind need to be occupied with crime? I must admit that I cannot really enjoy reading books. I used to like Agatha Christie, but then she doesn't go into details either, like gory details. And there's this obsession with crime. How did he do it? Does it really matter? Does it really matter how he murdered those poor children and his pregnant wife? I mean, we know how he disposed of their bodies, and he knows that and we know he did it. I think that's enough. There should be a limit to how much the public needs to know. What people are afraid of is they see this beautiful family and they wonder what went wrong. And I think I have the answer. Our existence on this earth is made up of several layers, if you look at it like an onion. So we see the outside. When we watch other people, we see the outside, but we don't know what's going on the inside. And I think modern life is obsessed with the exterior, especially since so few people read books these days, and most of us are watching these screens. People have become extremely visual. I saw a little boy crossing the street this morning while having an iPhone right in his face, and I said to him, look at the sky, the world is beautiful. I myself am a very big fan of YouTube. I learn a lot from YouTube. There are wonderful speakers on YouTube, wonderful shows, and I don't have a TV because I don't want that in my life. And I want to know what's going on. That's how I was raised. My father always read, my late father always read 2 newspapers a day, and there's this need to be up to date on what's going on. We also live in the Middle East, in an area where any minute now a war can break out. So, having said that, I really went off the topic, but it is the topic. We don't know if people are happy or not just because they seem happy. And when you see a father play with children, it also, you don't know what's going on really. A lot of people live poster life, a life like a poster. Like everything is it looks wonderful. You take a photo, everybody's smiling, but what's behind the smiles? And sometimes I think when you see a family where people argue with each other, they might be a lot happier than when you see families when people sit together and don't speak at all. So of course those are extremes, but I think in a regular family life there is a certain dynamics, and when you see somebody is always smiling, everything is great, should ask yourself what's going on there. So I think it has to do with being allowed to express your emotions. And when people don't express their emotions, I think that's the root of all evils. When people do not express who they really are, they might choose to live like a double life, like Chris Watts, and have like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde sort of entity. And then, so the question is, what are the warning signs? I think the warning signs should be a lack of communication in the family, that there's no real communication. And of course, the very root of the problems is authenticity and being genuine. When people are not able to be genuine, when they hide, and now Chris Watts is notorious for being a liar. Ask yourself, what does it mean to lie? To lie means to hide things. It's like a dog burying a bone. They're hiding things. I, for instance, never feel the need to lie. And I asked myself why, because I think it's in sharp contrast to a lot of people. I have a need to really be clean and to what you see is what you get. But a lot of people feel a lack of confidence at being real because they've been hurt. They have learned that when they're real, when they say what they think, they get penalized for being real. It makes life complicated. So they learn to please. They learn to say to people what they want to hear. So I think it's very typical of Hollywood film sort of lifestyle that you want to please, you want to seem very like to be a beautiful family, everything is fantastic, and then you repress your real emotions and you want to look like oh, everything is beautiful, everything is wonderful. So if you see this kind of reality, if you feel like you cannot express your emotions in the family and you can't be your real self, and that everything you say is to please other people, but then you feel like, hey, I'm not really being heard, I'm not being listened to. And when you see there's a discrepancy with how you are with your loved ones and how you are when you're all alone with yourself, when you see that there's a gap between how you are with people and how you are alone, when there's a very big gap, I think that's a red light. How do we spot those discrepancies? A good matter. A good question. I think you have to observe people and really take a look at them. And unfortunately, in this era where we're always looking outside, we're not looking inside enough. And just the idea of yoga. Again, I'm very blessed to have been in the yoga school. And I am aware of my tendency as well. It's so much easier to look outside and not look inside, because inside there might be things that are not so nice to see. And it's kind of the lifestyle is let's just do what makes us feel good. And then sometimes confronting emotions that are not pleasant doesn't feel good, so we just like repress. Let's just not look. Let's look outside at the beautiful. Let's look outside. Let's not look inside, because inside we might see things we don't like. So this tendency to escape what's going on inside has a price. And sooner or later it catches up with you, and eventually what happens is that you are eventually, when you fail to look inside, everything that's inside, bubbling inside you, I think it's a sort of like it simmers inside, and it's a process. It's not from one day to another, but it just builds up and builds up and builds up, and one day it's like snap, you snap. And not because of somebody else. Somebody else is just a trigger. It can be anything. Somebody just like you blow up, because everything inside you just becomes too much and overwhelming, and you just go mad. So in order to live a healthy life, I think you have to go inside more and deal with your emotions and live in a way in a family or in a community where you can express your emotions and be yourself. And that's, I think, the key to avoid Chris Watts sort of situations. Peace, light, and love. Blessed memory of Shan'Ann Watts and her children.